Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're here, we're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And if you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat and then we can get today's stream started. And as I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. That is the most important thing that you can do for me on this channel, because that will help to assist in making sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications. And it also helps to assist in making sure that these videos permeate throughout the YouTube algorithm, therefore making it excuse me, therefore making it easier for my video to have access to those who are interested in this type of content. Also, make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well. It has the same effect within the YouTube algorithm. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already, and hit the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. So now that the introduction is out the way, and I see the ones are starting to come into the live chat, let's get into today's stream and what it's about. And as many of you can see, the title of today's stream is Venezuelan Migrant Committed Crime is up. Get this, 2,538% in Chicago, right? So now what I wanted to do today is I wanted to take a moment to piggyback off of the last stream, which I did, I believe it was about 2 days ago now, right? Where we were discussing the warning put out of the potential threat of a Venezuelan prison gang entering into Chicago. This was a warning that was put out by Chicago PD. And they were warning that there was potential Venezuelan prison gang members that were entering into the city, mixed in with the rest of the so-called Venezuelan migrants who are being bussed into Chicago. Now, interesting enough, as I discussed during that stream, Chicago PD and other local law enforcement officials, they were refusing to actually release the data as it pertains to how many Venezuelan nationals were actually being arrested in the city. They were withholding that information and they didn't want to put it out. But thanks to a local independent news organization in Chicago titled CWB Chicago, they actually filed I believe it was a Freedom of Information Act. And through that Freedom of Information Act, they were able to actually get the data of the number of arrests occurring since the migrants have been entering into the city. And that number comes out, or I should say the percentage comes out to that huge 2,538% number that I just told you about. So now what I want to do is dive into this article here, where we'll get a little bit more detailed into this information and find out what's really going on in the city. So let's jump into it right now. And this article here comes from Channel 6, NBC, KPVI. And the article reads, or the title reads, State Coalition Expanded Migrant Parole Policy Leads to Increased Crime in Chicago. Now, before we get into this, many have warned over and over again that this was going to happen, right? If you come over here to this article here from the Center Square, the title reads off 20 states sue Biden administration over illegal visa system. And very briefly, I'm going to read the equivalent of 2 paragraphs here. It states 20 states led by Texas sued Biden administration Tuesday over another immigration policy they argue is illegal. A new U.S. Department of Homeland Security program unlawfully creates a de facto pathway to citizenship for hundreds of thousands of aliens, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton argues, referring to a plan President Joe Biden announced on January 5th. Paxton said Biden's border policies are creating a humanitarian crisis and major problems for border states. And it goes on to quote him as stating, every state in America especially border states like Texas, is being crushed by the impact of illegal immigration. He said the Biden open border agenda has created a humanitarian crisis that is increasing crime and violence in our streets, overwhelming local communities, and worsening the opioid crisis. This unlawful amnesty program, which will invite hundreds of thousands of aliens into the US every year, will only make this immigration crisis drastically worse. And that's what we have seen. And this is exactly what has happened. So we were warned about this over and over again, but the warning went over everyone's head, at least if you're a vote blue, no matter who are. And if you had the audacity to speak on these warnings or to continue to deliver warnings, as I've been doing to our brothers and sisters in Chicago, you're just kind of casted out as being xenophobic and spreading hateful rhetoric towards immigrants. But that just simply isn't the case, as we saw earlier in the year when Brandon Johnson began sheltering multiple migrants in Black neighborhoods on the South and West Side. The South and West Side residents, they were very vocal, saying that they were concerned with the crime that would come from this. They were concerned with the safety of all of this. They were also told that they were being xenophobic and anti-immigrant. And lo and behold, as we covered on this channel on many videos, everything that they feared had came to pass, as many of those shelters in their neighborhoods essentially turned into project houses, trap houses in which drugs were being sold, sex trafficking was occurring, loud parties into the night, drinking all throughout the night, alcohol bottles littered all throughout where the shelter is in these people's communities. And once again, they were the ones told that they were wrong for having those kind of concerns, just for everything that they were concerned about to come to pass. So much so that the city council members, or I should say the aldermen of those wards or of those districts, started having emergency meetings to address the shelter situations in those neighborhoods. So I always have to reiterate that, and I always want to make sure to say that, because at least me personally, no one's going to take me off my square as it pertains to giving our folks in Chicago fair warning as to what's going on concerning this man-made migrant crisis by Joe Biden and how it negatively impacts the communities that these migrants have now been placed in. Your concerns were valid and continue to be valid. The warnings that get put out concerning the Venezuelan prison gang, as well as the information that I'm getting ready to put out here that was being hid by Chicago PD, all of this is relevant and should be made public. And discussing this does not make you anti-immigrant or xenophobic. That is completely ridiculous. But now what I want to do is get into the meat of today's stream. So let's get back into the main article discussing how the increased number of arrests of Venezuelan nationals went up 2,538%. And before we dive into this, there is currently 274 of you in the live stream right now. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, because that is the most important thing that you can do for this channel. Now, let's get into it. Increased crime in Chicago being committed by Venezuelans, primarily in the U.S. illegally, is the result of an expanded parole policy implemented by the Biden administration. A coalition of attorneys generals led by Texas is seeking to end a parole program they argue is illegally being used to usher in hundreds of thousands of people illegally into the country, bypassing laws established by Congress. Florida, which joined the coalition, also filed additional lawsuits to stop additional parole programs. Since January, the number of Venezuelans arrested by Chicago police has increased 2,538% from last year, according to Chicago Police Department data obtained through a public information request by CWB Chicago News. As of November 12th, 686 Venezuelan nationals were arrested by Chicago police, compared to 26 in 2022 and 6 in 2021. The report cites examples of serious crimes, including one migrant shooting another migrant That's new. I didn't know about that one. One migrant shooting another migrant, a robbery of a Divvy employee, a stabbing over a dispute about bathroom cleanliness, and increased shoplifting incidents reported at Macy's and Nordstrom's rack stores located on North State. The increase in the shoplifting cases makes sense, CWB News said, because the city has opened a migrant shelter just a few blocks away from the Macy's and Nordstrom locations at the Standard Club, 320 South Plymouth Court. The result of the result, question mark, of the 266 people who were found who've been arrested for shoplifting at Macy's this year, at least 50 are of Venezuelan origin. More than 21,000 Venezuelans have arrived in Chicago this year, according to data published by CWB News. And while city officials have blamed Texas Governor Greg Abbott for the influx, President Joe Biden announced the creation of his new program on January 5th, specifically including releasing Venezuelans into the country. What drives me crazy the most is how people continuously blame Greg Abbott in Texas, the governor of Texas. That's crazy, right? Clearly, once again, this is a policy that was implemented by Joe Biden. This open border policy is something that he deliberately did. This is a manufactured crisis that he intentionally created. And the thought that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, was just supposed to house all these people based off of Biden's policy is completely ridiculous. How are you supposed to house an influx like what we've seen? Imagine, this is the equivalent. Imagine I come to your home and I slide open the window to your home, right? And I make it and I prop it so that you can't shut it, at least for the moment. And now people start coming into your home through that window nonstop. So then what you do is that you send them on a bus, at least a portion of them, to my house. And then I turn around and have the audacity to complain and look at you and say, hey, man, why are you causing all these problems in my house by sending all these people over here? You're being anti-immigrant. You're being xenophobic. This is actually all of your fault that we're having this crisis here. How does that make logical sense? That's completely ridiculous and nonsensical, but that's the logic of the Democratic Party. That's the logic of Joe Biden. That's the logic of Brandon Johnson, who continuously blames Greg Abbott for a situation that him and the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, can get under control right now if they wanted to, but are choosing not to because they are DNC first. They are simply following orders and following it to the T without complaints. That's what's happening here. And once again, it's completely ridiculous and nonsensical to continue to put that blame on Greg Abbott in Texas. I would do the same thing if I was him. And for the most part, he had the right idea. But now let's get back into this article here, right? So let's jump back into this. And the article continues to read, Biden's parole policy is consistent with his administration's expressed support of the United Nations Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration. The GCM is part of the United Nations Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Plan and has actively involved with the and has been actively involved with the migration of people all over the globe. The influx of foreign nationals from these countries is among the nearly 4 million illegal border crossers in the fiscal 2023 year, and over 10 million since Biden has been in office. I want to read that one more time because that's crazy. That is an insane number. Did I read that right? 10 million? Since Biden has been in office, 10 million? I got to read that one more time. Let's run it back. I need to read that sentence again because that just sounds crazy. The influx of foreign nationals from these countries is among the nearly 4 million illegal border crossers in the fiscal year of 2023, and over 10 million since Biden's been in office. Wow. That's crazy. That's insane. Shortly after the Biden administration began flying people from the southwest border all over the country, Democratic mayors and governors, including from Chicago and Illinois, respectively declared emergencies and blamed Abbott. Additionally, city officials state that 22,300 people have arrived on the Texas buses. Look at the language that they keep using um, in Chicago, right? They refer to it as Texas buses. They arrived on Texas buses. I find that interesting. They should rename that and say that they have arrived on Biden's buses, because this is literally all of Biden's fault. It just, that's just the fact of the matter, right? That people keep wanting to pretend like that isn't true. But let's carry on. The article continues to read, however, Abbott has bused 19,700 illegal foreign nationals to Chicago since August of 2022, according to the data from the governor's office as of November 17th. Others have Others are arriving through a Democratic run program in El Paso funded by FEMA. A lot of people don't know that. Let me read that again. Others are arriving through a Democratic run program in El Paso funded by FEMA. So take that into consideration. As people like Brandon Johnson and JB Pritzker continue to place the blame at the feet of Governor Abbott in Texas, what we just read here and we're finding out here is that there is a Democratic Party run program by FEMA that is also busing these so-called migrants to Chicago. So Democrats are literally busing migrants to Chicago, but then pointing the finger at Greg Abbott and said, look at Abbott's buses. Or I should say, look at these Texas buses. Look at what they're doing. Look at how they're dividing our city. And they're bringing all these people here, creating all this chaos in our city. That's not true. Or at least that's a partial truth, right? It's partial, because what they leave out are the Democratic Party run FEMA buses that are bringing those same so-called migrants into the city of Chicago. Let's carry on. That's interesting. I did not know that piece of information, and I actually should look into that a little bit more. El Paso's officials have said that Chicago is the top destination of illegal foreign nationals arriving there seeking free transportation north. Chicago is the new top destination. And that actually makes all the sense in the world that Chicago would be the new top destination, because at this point, New York is all sold up, man. New York is it's where are you going to go in New York? New York at this point is completely upside down. I believe so far to date, what they have, over 200,000, I think at this point, so-called migrants that have entered into New York. The new hotspot and the new place to go to is going to be Chicago. I think as of right now, like we just read, 20,000 so far have entered in. You still got at least a good 180,000 more to catch up with New York City. And that's what's getting ready to happen, because Chicago is a lot more open than New York City is right now. And as it pertains to mayors and governors running the city, Governor Kathy Hochul in New York, she has very soft shoed in a very safe manner after seeing the example made by Eric Adams. She has very safely soft shoed pressed the Biden administration to help out with what's going on in New York, right? Obviously, Eric Adams has been extremely aggressive in laying the blame at the feet of Biden. But when you come to Chicago and the state of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, there's no resistance from them. So Chicago versus New York City is a lot more safe. At least it appears that way when you have the top people in control of the state and city following lockstep right in line with the DNC's plan with no resistance and holding Biden to no type of accountability at all whatsoever. So our brothers and sisters in Chicago, get ready for that 180,000 more. Get ready for that 180,000 influx that's quite possibly headed your way, because they're not interested in going to New York anymore. As we're reading here, the new top destination. They're crossing the border. They're saying, where do you want to go to? You want to go to Denver? You want to go to DC? You want to go to New York City? You want to go to Los Angeles? They're saying, send me to the south side of Chicago. Send me to the west side of Chicago. That's where we want to go. And it appears that's clearly what's happening. Now, let's get back into this article as we round things out, because we're almost finished with this. And also, there are 461 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. That is extremely important. The Biden administration also notes the Biden administration also notes that the increased quota of people being released into the U.S. from Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua includes family members. As part of Biden's policy, the Department of Homeland Security announced it was expanding its carrier liaison program through the expanded parole process for certain nationals of Venezuela to now include certain nationals of Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua, and their qualifying immediate family members the opportunity to request advance authorization to travel to the U.S. to seek parole. The 20-state coalition led by Texas, attempting to stop this parole program, argue Biden created a new illegal visa program under the false pretense of preventing aliens from unlawfully crossing the border between the ports of entry. It allows those being released into the U.S. to be authorized to have work permits and to remain in the U.S. for 2 years. And we also have to remember as well, if they're coming into those cities such as Washington, D.C., where they have legalized non-citizen voting, they'll be able to vote in local elections as well, right? And as we all remember, in New York, that was shut down, but they're currently fighting that out in court. As I told you all, just because it got shut down didn't mean that the Democrats in New York weren't going to fight hard to overturn it. And that's what's currently happening right now. They're fighting hard to overturn the law that was shut down that would have allowed non-citizens the right to vote. So that's still up in the air. We're yet to see where that's going to go. And I can almost 100% guarantee you that before Brandon Johnson is finished in Chicago, he will have put into law the right for non-citizens to vote in Chicago, all of which these folks who are under temporary protected status, where they are now legally have the right to work in the United States, they would all be qualified, because technically on paper they are not illegal. They are simply non-citizens, right? Because they have paperwork, they are legally authorized to work in the United States and are technically considered asylum seekers. So that's going to be on the lookout. I can almost 100% guarantee you, before Brandon Johnson is done, that's going to be the cherry on top of his tenure, is to put in place a mechanism, right? Or to put in place or establish the law that will allow non-citizen voting in Chicago. But let's carry on once again as we round this all out, and we're going to bring this stream to an end. The article continues to read, the 20-state coalition, I think I read that already. I'll just start it there again. The 20-state coalition led by Texas, attempting to stop this parole program, argued Biden created a new illegal visa program under the false pretense of preventing aliens from unlawfully crossing the border between the ports of entry. It allows those being released into the U.S. to be authorized to have work permits and remain in the U.S. for 2 years. Biden's illegal visa program, the lawsuit alleges, allows aliens in their home countries to obtain the benefit of being able to obtain advance authorization to enter into the United States, despite no other bias in law from doing so. The lawsuit, like those filed in Florida, argues Biden's policies are unconstitutional and violates federal law established by Congress. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody maintains the majority of illegal foreign nationals being released into the U.S. don't have a legal basis under current asylum laws, and the parole system doesn't comply with mandatory detention laws and is illegal. And that wraps it up for that article. But this also goes to show for as much as many folks say, voting doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. And to a large degree, I understand that sentiment. If you're relying on that solely, then you're in major trouble. As we've seen in the Black community, simply voting blue, no matter who, religiously for 60 years straight, hasn't benefited us not one iota at all whatsoever, outside of cosmetic changes. But when it comes to just underlying issues in the community, certain disparities, which is pretty much everything known to man, because when it comes to disparities, we're disproportionately disadvantaged by everything. Just simply voting blue, no matter who, hasn't solved anything. But nonetheless, recklessly voting has serious consequences, right? And Biden is operating from the standpoint of what's the saying that people used to say? Don't ask, apologize. I think some of you all know what I mean. Don't ask, apologize. Is that the saying? Just say you're sorry afterwards, right? Do whatever it is that you're going to do. Don't ask permission. Don't see if it's okay. Just do it, right? Just do it. And when you get caught up doing it, go, oopsies, my bad. I didn't know that was illegal. And that's basically how Biden is operating right now. I wouldn't be surprised if those attorney generals, those 20 that are suing Biden, eventually win the suit. But by that time, it's too late. You could even take that to Chicago with voting in Mayor Brandon Johnson, right? If he's allowed to finish his term, it's too late. The damage is done, right? Regardless of what you feel may be illegal, he shouldn't be doing this, he should be doing that, this is wrong, none of that matters. If you're unable to remove these folks or at least frustrate their plans mid-term while they're in the middle of their term, right? If you're unable to do these things, once they fulfill their term, job is done. And this is something that me and Rob were talking about yesterday, and me and him discussed all the time. At least, when we talk privately, me and Rob, for all of you who don't know, our good brother from Blacklight Revelations 2, right? He has like a million channels, Blacklight Revelations 1 through 1000, really. But we were discussing this actually yesterday in closing. If many people in the comment section, you'll see it in the live chat, you'll see it in the comment section after a stream ended. Many people say, oh, one term Brandon Johnson, Brandon Johnson looks like he's only going to be here for one term. That doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. If he fulfills his term, then he's fulfilled his job. He's completed the mission. Job well done, sir. He's going to ride off into the sunset. He'll be set for life, and his children will be set for life as well, because he completed his assignment. If you're unable to frustrate him mid-assignment and stop the things that he's putting in place mid-assignment, then him being a one-term mayor means absolutely nothing, because all that's going to happen is that they're going to put in a new Brandon Johnson once he leaves. That's all that's going to happen, right? So once again, as it pertains to the city of Chicago, currently there is no mechanism for the people to be able to recall Brandon Johnson. What has to happen, and I did a show about that previously, I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but what has to happen is that pressure has to be put on local officials to get that on the ballot, to get it on the ballot in 2024, to be able to have the citizens of Chicago, and I should say the state of Illinois overall, have the right to vote on whether or not they want to have recall elections that they are able to enforce. That has to get on the ballot. If you can't get that on the ballot, if you can't put that into place, and I'm going to look into that, McFat, because I think you've told me about this a couple of times already. See Illinois' HB 3511, 2021, 2022, 102nd General Assembly. I'm going to look into that, brother. Thank you very much. But if you're unable to get this on the ballot so that you can actually have a mechanism to recall Brandon Johnson, then once again, if he finishes out his 4-year term, mission accomplished, job well done, and crime continues to go up, as we're seeing here, concerning the Venezuelan nationals that have entered in by way of the Biden buses because of Biden's open border policies. So with all that being said, that does it for today's video. I want to thank you all for joining me today. There are 487 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and also follow me on Telegram. The link to the Telegram should be pinned in the live chat if I remember. I hope I did, but it's also in the description box below. And also make sure you text TD Hip Hop to number 33222. That's TD Hip Hop to number 33222. And that way you'll enter into our text notification group, and you will get a direct text notification whenever I go live. So with all that being said, once again, thank you all for your time. Have a great morning if you're on the West Coast like me in LA, and have a great afternoon if you're anywhere else. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.